Through the first half of 2026, manufacturers shipped 163,644 RVs. That's 27,061 fewer units than the same period last year, a 14.2% decline. Towable RVs are down 16.8%. Every single month this year has posted a year-over-year drop. And the RVIA has already revised its full-year forecast downward, projecting between 300,000 and 328,000 wholesale shipments, an 8% decline from 2025, citing tighter household budgets, higher financing costs, and economic uncertainty as the reasons Americans are delaying purchases. So let me square the title with you right now, because I'm going to be honest about what this video is actually about. It's not a countdown. I'm not going to hold up 15 badges and tell you which brand is trash. That's easy content, and it doesn't help you. What I'm going to do is walk you through the 5 forces that are converging right now in this specific market at this specific moment to destroy the resale value of certain categories of RVs. And once you understand those forces, you won't need me to name the 15. You'll be able to look at any listing on any marketplace and know instantly whether you're looking at a unit that's holding or a unit that's falling. That's more useful than a list. Here are the 5 forces. 1. The pandemic production sprint and the build quality it left behind. 2. Depreciation curves that punish certain RV classes far harder than others. 3. A supply overhang so massive that dealers are drowning in inventory they can't move. 4. An economic environment that has turned against large discretionary purchases. And 5. The calendar, because a wave of units bought in 2020 through 2022 are now hitting the 4 to 6 year ownership mark, which is exactly the point where maintenance costs arrive. Depreciation has taken its deepest bite, and owners are making the sell or keep decision all at the same time. Every unit that fits the title, and there are far more than 15, sits at the intersection of at least 3 of those forces. Let's go through them. In 2021, RV manufacturers shipped nearly 600,000 units. That was a record. The industry had never produced at that pace, and it showed. Dealers on a nationwide conference call that year described the quality of incoming units as pathetic. One longtime dealer told an industry publication it was the worst quality he'd seen in 30 years. Horrendous inside and out, but added that he had no choice but to put them on the lot and try to sell them because that was all the manufacturers were sending. Now, if you're serious about keeping your RV alive, I put together something called the 30-Year RV Bible. It covers all 47 maintenance habits with the exact intervals, the 11 places water gets into an RV, the 45-point inspection checklist for buying used, 22 dealer upsells decoded with the exact words to say back, and printable checklists you keep in the rig. Everything you need to know. The link is below this video. All right, let's keep going. Thomson Research Group surveyed dealerships that same year, and the findings were consistent. Exposed wiring, appliances installed incorrectly, furniture separating from walls during transit, propane fittings assembled so sloppily they leaked from day one. This wasn't limited to one manufacturer or one product line. It was systemic. When you're pushing the entire factory floor to maximum output with a disrupted supply chain, substituted components, and a labor force that's been turned over, quality is the variable that gives. Now here's the part that matters for 2026. Those units are 5 years old. They're past warranty. And every shortcut that was papered over at the pre-delivery inspection, the seal that wasn't seated right, the slide mechanism that was slightly out of alignment, the roof seam that was laid a 1/4 inch off, has had 5 years to become a real problem. Water intrusion from a bad seal doesn't announce itself. It works its way into the wall for 2 or 3 years before it shows up as a soft spot on the floor or a bubble in the sidewall lamination. By the time you see it, the repair is 5 figures and the resale value is gone. And it wasn't just RVs. J.D. Power's 2022 initial quality study found that problems per 100 vehicles across the entire auto industry hit a record high in the 36-year history of the survey, an 11% increase year over year. The pandemic disrupted quality everywhere, but in the RV world, the consequences are worse, because an automobile's quality problems are mostly electronic and fixable under warranty. An RV's quality problems are structural, water, framing, adhesion, and they compound over time in ways that can't be reversed. You can replace a faulty infotainment screen. You can't undelaminate a sidewall. This is why a 2021 or 2022 build year has become a yellow flag in the used market. Buyers know the history. They've read the forums. They've watched the teardown videos. They've seen the detailed reporting about a $63,000 travel trailer that spent its entire first year broken at the dealership waiting for parts and then dropped components on every subsequent trip. That reputation discount is now baked into every pandemic-era unit on every marketplace, whether the specific unit has problems or not. The stigma is categorical, not individual. And the categories carrying the heaviest burden are the ones that were produced in the highest volumes during the sprint: entry-level travel trailers, mid-range fifth wheels, and Class C motorhomes. Class C was the highest volume motorized segment through the boom. Type C coaches led all motorhome shipments in 2025 and continue to lead in 2026. If you own a mass-market towable or a high-production Class C from 2021, your unit is carrying a build quality tax that has nothing to do with how carefully you maintained it. The market is discounting the vintage, not the vehicle. Here's where the math starts separating winners from losers. Class A gas motorhomes depreciate faster than any other RV type. Industry data consistently shows 30 to 35% value loss in year 1 alone. By year 5, a gas Class A has typically shed 50% or more of its original manufacturer's suggested retail price. One analysis tracked a popular gas Class A from roughly $165,000 new to approximately $80,000 at year 5, a 52% decline. And that was a mainstream model from a major manufacturer in good condition. The reason is structural. Fuel economy on a gas Class A runs 7 to 10 miles per gallon. Operating costs are high, and the used buyer pool strongly prefers diesel. A gas coach on a Ford chassis is competing for attention against diesel pushers that ride smoother, last longer mechanically, and cost less per mile to operate. In that matchup, the gas coach can only compete on price, and it has to fall a long way before the discount gets wide enough to offset the disadvantages. Compare that to a well-maintained Class B, a Winnebago Travato, for instance, which might lose 32% over 5 years, or an Airstream travel trailer, which routinely retains 60 to 70% of its value at the 5-year mark. Because the aluminum body doesn't delaminate, the brand carries genuine scarcity, and a 10-year-old Airstream still looks like an Airstream. The spread between the best retaining and worst retaining RV types is not a few percentage points. It's 30 to 40 points over 5 years. On a $150,000 purchase, that's the difference between a $45,000 loss and a $90,000 loss. Same hobby, same campground, same number of nights under the stars. Completely different financial outcome based on what category you bought and when you signed. And here's the detail that makes the diesel pusher segment particularly painful. The most expensive component, the drivetrain, is the one that retains its useful life the longest. A Cummins or Caterpillar diesel on a Freightliner chassis is rated for 200,000 to 300,000 miles. The house bolted on top of it, roof membrane, sidewall lamination, window seals, slide mechanisms, holding tanks, appliances, runs on a calendar, not an odometer. And that calendar tops out at roughly 10 to 15 years before maintenance costs start compounding seriously. You're paying a six-figure premium at purchase for drivetrain longevity you will almost certainly never reach, because the house will hit its expiration date first. The engine will still be healthy, the roof won't be, and you can't sell one without the other. And when matters more right now than it usually does, because of the pandemic pricing bubble. Used RVs were selling above new manufacturers' suggested retail price in 2021 and into 2022. People who bought during that window didn't just buy at retail, they bought at inflated retail. Their depreciation didn't start from sticker price. It started from a number that was already 10 to 20% above sticker, which means the hole they're in today is deeper than normal depreciation curves would predict, and the data confirms it. Wholesale analysis of the luxury diesel segment shows units that cleared around $250,000 in 2021, trading at $170,000 to $190,000. Now, a decline well past normal depreciation, amplified by the luxury buyer pulling back. The floor on that category hasn't been clearly established. This is the force that most people underestimate, because it's invisible unless you're looking at dealer-level data. More than $6.48 billion in RV inventory is currently sitting past 90 days on dealer lots across the United States. Some entry-level travel trailer trims are averaging 228 days on lot, 7.5 months. By late 2025, over $3.77 billion in RV inventory had been unsold long enough that newer models were arriving and pushing those units further down the priority list. The industry consensus is that an RV becomes aged at 90 days and stale at 120. Past 180, it's an emergency. And yet, there are thousands of units sitting well past that mark, accruing floor plan interest at roughly 10% annually, which means a $60,000 travel trailer is costing its dealer about $500 per month just to exist on the lot. At day 120, the dealer has eaten $2,000 in carrying costs, and the unit is worth less than when it arrived. At day 240, the math says send it to wholesale auction and take whatever number comes back. Now think about what that does to the private seller. If a dealer with a website, a finance department, and a physical lot needs 7 months to move a travel trailer, what chance does a private seller with a Facebook listing and a unit parked in their driveway have? The answer is, they have a chance, but only if they price below the dealer, which means pricing below a number that's already been cut twice. The oversupply is concentrated in two areas: entry-level towables and Class A gas coaches. These were the highest volume segments during the production boom, and the sheer number of units pushed into the market between 2021 and 2023 created a glut that hasn't been absorbed 3 years later. Market intelligence data shows one popular entry-level travel trailer brand with over 2,600 units from just 3 trims sitting in national inventory, and one of those trims averages 228 days on lot. That's not a slow-selling product. That's a parked product. Meanwhile, the model year treadmill never stops. 2027 models are already arriving at dealerships, which means every unsold 2025 and 2026 unit on the lot just became last year's inventory overnight. A technically new 2024 travel trailer that's been sitting on a dealer lot for 2 years is now competing with a 2027 model on one side and a used 2021 on the other. The dealer is marking down the 2024 to make room. The private seller with a used 2021 has to price below the dealer's marked down 2024. And the buyer is in no hurry because there are 15 of the same thing within a radius of 100 miles. Nobody in that sandwich is getting the number they want. Interest rates have not come down the way the industry expected. Recreational vehicle loan rates remain elevated. The 30-year mortgage rate was still above 6% heading into 2026, and recreational vehicle financing, which carries higher rates than mortgage debt and commonly runs 10 to 20 years on a depreciating asset, has stayed expensive enough to push monthly payments past what many buyers can justify. Then add tariffs. Most recreational vehicles sold in the United States are manufactured here, so the vehicle itself isn't subject to import duties. But many of the components inside them are. Appliances, electronics, fasteners, raw materials, the parts that make up the house portion of every recreational vehicle, have been subject to tariff-driven cost increases. The Tax Foundation estimates tariffs resulted in an average tax increase of about $700 per U.S. household in 2026. That's money that doesn't go toward a campground reservation or a monthly recreational vehicle payment. Consumer confidence has been soft. Inflation, while moderating, pushed core PCE prices up by an estimated 0.8 percentage points through early 2026 due to tariff pass-through alone, according to Federal Reserve analysis. People aren't panicking, but they're prioritizing. And when they prioritize, the $800 per month recreational vehicle payment is one of the first things they look at sideways. This environment doesn't kill recreational vehicle demand outright. It splits it. And this is the part of the data that most people miss. Motorhome shipments were actually up 9.8% through the first half of 2026. In a market where everything else is falling double digits, motorhomes are growing. That's not a contradiction. It's a signal. The buyers driving motorhome growth are largely cash buyers, retirees with equity, people who don't need a lender's permission and aren't sensitive to monthly payment size. They're buying the product they want at prices they consider reasonable, and the market is healthy for them. But the towable market, which represents more than 85% of total recreational vehicle shipments, is financed by a completely different buyer. Younger, more leveraged, more sensitive to rate changes and monthly payment pressure. That buyer stretched into a purchase between 2020 and 2022 when rates were low, inventory was scarce, and prices were inflated. They assumed rates would come back down. They assumed they could trade out in a few years with equity intact. Neither assumption held. And now they're sitting with a unit worth 40 to 55% less than they paid, a loan balance that hasn't caught up to the depreciation, and a monthly payment competing against groceries and gas that both cost more than they did 3 years ago. That's the bifurcation. The top of the market is fine. The middle and the bottom, where the volume is, are where values are collapsing. And stuck is the state immediately before selling at a loss. This is the one that ties everything else together. A person who bought a new RV in 2021 is now 5 years into ownership. Here's what 5 years means. Depreciation has taken 40 to 55% of the value, depending on type and class. That's the steepest portion of the curve. Years 1 through 5 account for the majority of lifetime value loss. The owner who paid $150,000 is looking at a unit worth $70,000 to $90,000. The owner who paid $250,000 is looking at $140,000 to $170,000. The owner who paid $40,000 for a travel trailer is looking at $18,000 to $24,000. Maintenance is arriving. The roof membrane needs inspection and resealing. Slide seals are taking a set and leaking. Appliances that have been used 30 days a year and sat idle for 335 are starting to seize. Tires are aging out on date code regardless of tread depth. The furnace, the water heater, the air conditioners, all of them are on the calendar, and the calendar says it's time. And here's the number that makes all of this worse. The median RV owner uses their rig 30 days per year. That's from the 2025 Go RVing demographic profile, up 50% from 20 days in the prior study, so usage is actually increasing. And it's still 1 month, 30 days of use, 335 days of UV exposure, seal shrinkage, humidity cycling, and tire degradation. The depreciation on these units is being purchased almost entirely with time, not with experience. You cannot preserve an RV's value by not using it. Not using it is what most owners are already doing, and the value is leaving anyway. So the owner is simultaneously looking at a unit that's lost nearly half its value, needs its first serious round of maintenance spending, has been sitting more than it's been moving, and may be carrying a loan balance that's higher than the trade-in number. RV loans commonly run 10 to 20 years. A 15-year note on a depreciating asset means the loan is structurally designed to outlive the practical lifespan of the house it's attached to. The buyer is underwater almost from the start, and they stay underwater for years because the amortization schedule and the depreciation curve are moving in opposite directions. Stack on top of that the carrying costs that most people don't model when they sign: insurance, storage, which runs $100 to $300 a month, depending on the market, registration, winterizing, and campground fees that have climbed steadily over the past 5 years. Total cost of ownership on a financed RV frequently equals or exceeds the purchase price over the life of ownership. On a high-end diesel pusher, annual cost of ownership can run north of $40,000 to $50,000 when you include depreciation, financing, insurance, fuel at 7 to 12 miles per gallon, maintenance, and storage. Most people don't run that math until the sell decision is already in front of them. And by then, the number is what it is. Those curves, depreciation, maintenance, carrying costs, and the gap between loan balance and market value all intersect at approximately year 5. For the pandemic cohort, year 5 is 2026. That's why this is happening now to this many people at the same time. It's not a coincidence. It's a schedule. So, there's the framework. 5 forces, all converging at once, and the 15 units in the title are simply the ones sitting at the intersection of the most forces simultaneously. Gas Class A, coaches from major manufacturers that were overproduced and underbuilt in 2021. Diesel pushers that were purchased at pandemic peaks by luxury buyers who are now watching 6-figure losses compound monthly. High-volume Class C motorhomes from builders who prioritized throughput over quality, and entry-level travel trailers and fifth wheels that were shipped by the hundreds of thousands into a market that has spent 3 years trying to absorb them. You don't need me to read you a list of model numbers. You need to know the pattern. And the pattern is mass market, pandemic-era build, high original MSRP relative to segment, gas over diesel, towable over fiberglass, volume brand over specialty brand, and 4 to 6 years old. If a unit checks 3 or more of those boxes, it's on the list whether I named it or not. If you own one, use it or sell it, but don't store it and wait for recovery. Storage, insurance, and depreciation continue at full rate, whether you camp or not. A rig that isn't moving is still costing money and still aging. That's how an RV becomes a pure monthly expense with no offsetting benefit, and that's the state most people endure for a year or two before they finally sell at a number they didn't want. If you're buying, this is the window you've been waiting for. A 5-year-old unit with documented single-owner maintenance history and no water damage has already surrendered the steep part of the depreciation curve. The mechanicals on a motorhome are barely started at 30,000 or 40,000 miles. The towable frame doesn't care about age the way the house does. That's the strongest value position in the entire market right now, and there is an enormous volume of it available from sellers who need out. But you have to inspect like your money depends on it, because it does. Get under it. Get on the roof. Bring a moisture meter and someone who knows what early stage delamination looks like before it shows up as a visible bubble. Check date codes on tires. Run every slide. Fire every appliance. The build quality from 2021 and 2022 is a known variable. The sellers know it, the dealers know it, and now you know it. Treat it accordingly, negotiate accordingly, and walk if the inspection tells you to walk. There's another one just like it 3 listings down. And if you're keeping yours, stop storing it and start using it. The depreciation is already happening. The aging is already happening. Driving it is the only thing that converts the financial loss into something you actually got. 30 days a year means the rig is costing you money 335 days for every 30 days of experience. Change that ratio. That's the only move that makes the math feel less like a trap and more like a trade-off you chose. Know the forces, know the calendar, and know what you're actually paying for.